Hello and welcome. Today I would like to try something different. Previously, I've subjected and topicalized, I've categorized all my notes according to a topic and a subject. And I've tried to talk about one subject for an extended time. However, what I found is that there are too many thoughts and not necessarily all about one topic. So instead of trying to wait until I have another larger script ready, or until I can record like 1 or 2 minute type of videos, which are maybe not the type that I want to create, I decided that I want to try a sort of like random selection of thoughts, where I go through notes and I try to talk about multiple points without necessarily them being consistent of just one topic. I think that might be interesting, and we're going to try this. So you can imagine this being a sort of like, when you have trading cards or some other kind of trading things that, you buy these packages and you never know what's going to be inside. And you have multiple different ones inside, hopefully, right? So that you can add to your collection. So I want to try this version and this model, which I haven't seen before. But if it's fun, then let's try this, right? And so I would like to start already. Maybe I will add the notes into the video description or a link to those. But for the moment, I will just start talking from one point to the next and see how this flows, right? So one thing that I thought about was titled, "What is the Beautiful Soul?" So we can think about what is that which is a person whom we consider to be beautiful, whom we consider to be good, and whom we admire and consider to be worthy of admiration. Not love, but admiration. So I've listed some of the ideas that may link to the idea of the beautiful soul. So for example, a beautiful soul tries hard, right? So if we don't try hard, what kind of quality do we really have? Because the only quality that we can really talk about is whether we do something or we don't do something. So what do we do is that which can be judged. What we are, I would say, is not to be judged, but what we do can be judged. So our thoughts and our other actions that result from thoughts. And we can think about this and say that, for having good actions, we need to have first an understanding of what is good and good thoughts that result in good actions. Now you can accidentally do something good, and you can also try to think about something good and then make maybe a mistake and accidentally do something bad, even though you thought it would be good. But let us just say that what you try to do may be and is that you want to think and you want to sort out the thoughts that help you in making good decisions from those that don't help you making good decisions. And then you want to understand the topic that you're trying to deal with and work with, and you try to make good decisions about those topics. So you try to think about, for example, just like when I was sitting here and thought, should I record a podcast episode or should I not record a podcast episode? Then the thoughts would weigh the pros and cons against each other. Like, whenever we do something, we are presented with options. Like, for example, the option of doing this or that, which can also be the option of doing it or not doing it, right? That is also a decision that we have to make. And we weigh these options against each other. We try to think, hey, what is the benefit for doing one or the other? So can I think of something that this would benefit me or other people when I do this? And so, for example, usually we are very happiness driven. So we will do things because they bring us happiness. And if you don't feel happiness and pleasure, you might not do it. So, for example, we can think of, let's say that I want to record a podcast episode because it makes me feel happy when I do it, or after I'm done with it. After I'm done doing it and after I'm done with the podcast episode, I will be happy. Therefore, I have to do it. But that is not a wise decision, because happiness is not necessarily an ethical good. It is an ethical good, but it is a very primitive ethical good, right? So we don't actually arrive at any grander conclusion when we simply strive for happiness. So, should I do this because it makes me happy? Probably there should be a better reason for that. There should be a reason that says something like, it will help people, right? And therefore I need to be happy. It's not that I should do it because it makes me happy, but I should do it because it makes other people happy. Therefore I should be happy doing it, right? So that is also empathy, where we can project into others, where we can understand others, relate to others, and we can say that, hey, you know what? I do it because of other people, not because of myself. Now, some people will say that, well, ultimately you do it for yourself because you're happy when other people are happy. But I think that is a lack of understanding here. Because again, what comes first? If first you do it because you will think about your happiness in the end, then yeah, you do it because of happiness or for your own happiness. But if you do it because you cognitively come to the conclusion, to the goal, to the realization that it will be good for others, and you do not have any emotions attached to that idea, then you do not do it because of happiness, because you don't even know whether you will feel happy yet. And if it turns out, like if you then start doing this, and you realize, hey, you know what? Other people profit from it, and actually this makes me happy. Then you didn't do it because of your own happiness, because you didn't even know if you would feel happy. But you did it because you thought of something as being ethically reasonable, and there is a logical conclusion as to whether or not it is a good thing to do. So those are some thoughts about ethics, what we should do. And so the beautiful soul may be a soul that tries hard. If we don't try, we don't have to say that we have to succeed, right? So we can say that we try to do something, and we try it as best as we can. So we put effort in it. So it's not about succeeding, it's about how much effort we put into something. And this could be an idea of a quality that is sort of property that makes a soul beautiful. And we can also say that the beautiful soul reflects, so it thinks about something. It thinks about itself and about things that it tries to accomplish and it tries to interact with. So that is a quality that can be very admirable, reflecting on things. Because without reflection, we don't understand what we're doing and if what we're doing is good or not. Then we can say that the beautiful soul practices awareness and consciousness such that we are constantly practicing to become more aware of things, to become more in tune with ourselves, to be more in tune with ourselves, and to also share this, right? So we don't just want to be aware, but we want to help others become aware as well. So it is aiding them, helping them, assisting them to become more of who they really are. Then the beautiful soul may be about love and loving. So love as a quality of what we are. We are love. We are love. There is not such an adjective for that. There's loved, loving. But I'm trying to come to a different term here. I'm trying to formulate something differently here. And I'm trying to say that there is a quality of love in a soul, the capacity of love, the amount and quality of love that we have and that we give to other people, practicing that we are being filled with love, that we become more full of love. That is different than loving or being lovable or loved or anything other, like all these other adjectives. Full of love, a lot of love, right? And loving. So a beautiful soul will want to love, will want to be in union with other things, will want to become one with things, and be in a good relationship with things, whether that is humans, animals, plants, ideas, or other objects, or God. So the beautiful soul will want to share love and be love, right? Then the beautiful soul also has virtues, strengths, skills, traits, characteristics. For example, honesty, right? So talking about being honest, not only with others, but also with themselves. Trying to not lie in thinking, especially in thinking. Because if we start to lie while we think, our thoughts become unmanaged. They become disorderly, they become chaotic, and we arrive at wrong conclusions. So if I try to think of, let's say, what is the right thing to do in a state, in a nation, and I cannot consider racial issues because I lied to myself about race, then my conclusions on how to behave in a state may be racist, ultimately. They may be detrimental to others. They may be harmful. Then patience is another virtue, a strength, an ability, something that we can practice and have. So virtues are a funny thing because, or an interesting thing, because people are sometimes born with some virtues more than others, but we still have to try to develop them. So we can train ourselves to become more patient, for example. And patience is an incredibly useful skill because the world operates at one specific type of tact, a rhythm. And we operate at a different one. And we cannot control how things operate. So we need to wait a lot of the time. We need to wait for things to happen in the world. So that is, for example, a farmer who has to wait for the crop to grow before they can harvest the crop. Before they can harvest it, they will have to wait. They will have to practice patience. If we are not patient with ourselves, that can cause problems. So for example, if you want to study and learn, but you're not patient with the process, then you will not study very well. Humility, another virtue, very important. To be humble and to show humility. Then another question about the beautiful soul is, should only do intrinsic strength also include beauty? Are they also part of the beauty? I would say no. So for example, if someone is born tall, or someone is born with a lot of ability to put on muscles very easily, or a woman is born with maybe a beautiful face, those things are not per se beautiful. They are accidental. Now, maybe in some tradition we can say that, well, they maybe did something really great in their past life, therefore they are reborn with these beautiful traits and attributes and characteristics. But I think for most people in most traditions, that's not what we think about or think. So physical appearance, intelligence, talents, all of those things we can say are not beautiful, or they don't contribute to the beauty of a person. We get distracted by those and think they're beautiful. So for example, we can see a beautiful woman and we can say she looks very pretty, therefore she's beautiful. But I wouldn't say that. I would say that beauty is the thing that we do, not that we are born with. Because you cannot be judged for things that you are born with, right? So that is also one of the ideas about racism, that you can be judged for what you're born with. Whether you're born black, white, Asian, anything else, that you get judged by that. And that is something that I wouldn't subscribe to. I would say that we can only be judged on the things that we do, not on the things that we are. Now, if we become something, that's different. If someone works hard, they work out, they practice exercise that put on muscles, and they become muscular, then we can say that what they are is a reflection of what they have done. And if we think that that is something beautiful, then we can say that, yeah, this person is now beautiful, and we can see it in what they are. But I would be careful with doing that, because in most cases we cannot really say that, and we cannot say it easily especially. Most things, for example, humility. We can see a person and we can say that they're humble, but the problem is we cannot say whether or not they were already born with a talent for humility. So we cannot really judge them and say that, oh, they're a very humble person and we find that beautiful, therefore they're a beautiful person. We can only judge it by their action when we observe the action. Since they might be born with a talent for humility already. Let's assume that this talent exists. We can also take other examples where it's more appropriate. Let us assume that the talent for humility exists. Then we can say that, well, someone may be just born with a lot of talent already. And therefore, we don't know if what we observe right now as a humble person is something that they've worked hard for or not. Maybe they didn't work at all on that. Therefore, we cannot judge it based on how a person is, only by what a person does. So it is a very empirical sort of judgment. It is based on what we observe a person doing. Again, there, however, we also need to ask ourselves whether we can really judge the person correctly. Because again, someone may commit a very humble act, but we don't know whether they've worked hard on that to be able to do that act. Now, how can we really know whether a person is humble or not, or any other sort of virtue, quality, or property? Well, we need to know how much they've worked on it. And the work is very difficult to observe, to see. It's very difficult to be visible. So we can say that when we know a person for a longer time, there we can start to see whether a person works hard on themselves or not. Now, it is very difficult. We cannot easily say that someone works hard or not. I think that opens up an entirely different philosophical question, like what is hard work and how can we measure it and how can we observe it, right? Now, another characteristic of a beautiful soul may be that they're refining wisdom. So they're working on their wisdom becoming greater. So they're a person who is not satisfied with being simply cognitive and intellectual, but they want to be wise, right? They want to have the qualities that we describe as being wise, whatever those are, which is another larger question. So striving and effort and kung fu or gong fu, right? It's a Chinese term. Most of us are familiar with it from kung fu movies. Literally, the term gong fu or kung fu means, from what I remember, gong is work, fu is husband or man. It is the person who works hard, who strives, hard labor, effort. So now effort and striving, when we practice this, we may say that that person is beautiful. They strive, they work hard, they struggle. They try to become more. They are not simply existing in the status quo. Self-criticism, also very important. So we have many flaws. We are born with flaws and we accumulate flaws all the time. If we aren't critical of ourselves, we cannot get rid of those flaws. We cannot transform them into beauty. So self-criticism is very important. Self-knowledge, also very important. Working despite criticism. So someone who is diligent, someone who works hard, and they work even though they face criticism or they face negative feedback, those are admirable. People who work despite the odds, even though other people criticize the work, they continue to work and to express themselves and to create and to provide for other people. Now here I said self-knowledge because it's very important that we wouldn't really consider someone who is ignorant of their own flaws and the flaws of their work to be someone beautiful. We would say that they have flaws. They should and would probably have to work on those flaws. So being oblivious, ignorant to criticism is not necessarily a strong virtue.